Brandon Cruz of Damon's Real Texas Barbecue doing another video for you. This time we're going to do a video talking about prepping pork ribs. So what we have here is pork spare ribs. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this down into a St. Louis style cut. At barbecue places you'll usually see there's pork baby back ribs or pork spare ribs. Now most places will take the spare rib and cut it down to a St. Louis style cut, and the reason for that is if you see this pork spare rib, it's a large wide rib that goes from really big down to a smaller size. So by doing a St. Louis cut, it's going to make them more uniform across the board, so they'll look a lot better in presentation wise, because we all know that people eat with their eyes. So if you have these big chunky ribs, you know, some big ones and some small ones sitting on a plate, it doesn't look quite as appetizing as if you were to just have one evenly sized ribs across the board. So pork spares or pork baby backs are like it says, baby backs. They come right across the very top of the hog near the spine, and then under that is where you get your pork spares. So we're going to go ahead and cut this down, and I'm going to show you how we do it. For it, you're going to need 2 knives. You're going to need a butcher's knife or a chef's knife, and then a boning knife again. And also, I always use paper towel, and you'll see why we need that paper towel here in just a minute. So on cutting these, the first cut you're going to want to do is you're going to want to flip it on its back. And right here, this bone is the sternum bone or brisket bone on the very front of the hog. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this bone off first. So with your chef's knife or butcher's knife, you can feel the bone right there, and you can even see it kind of where the indentation is. So all we're going to do is take our knife there, and the reason you have to use a chef's knife or a butcher's knife is because you've got to put some weight and some muscle into it, and these knives can handle it versus a little boning knife. So okay, so this is our brisket bone. We're just going to set this aside for now. Okay, then you're going to flip it back over, and what you're going to do, your next cut is, if you can see this white line right here that comes across, that is where we're going to follow and make this next cut. So you can see it right here, and it just goes all the way back. So we're going to follow that. All right, so we're saving these pieces here. We're not going to throw it away, because once again we can use that for our sausage. Okay, so cut that side off. Now what we're going to do is feel along this rib, and you can feel where the last bone is. It's right here. So sometimes some people will go to that rib and then cut that last bone off. What I usually do is I leave that bone, because when I'm cutting the ribs before I serve them, I usually cut that piece off just to taste it myself. And then the rest of this rib we usually sell it. So, and now it's squared, more uniform. Flip it across the back side, and you have this flap right here. This is where you're going to use your boning knife. So we're going to turn it here, and all you're going to do is take this flap, and you're going to cut it right where it meets the base of that slab of ribs, and you're just cutting it out. There we go. All right, so now, and you can clean this up. A lot of people, what they'll do is use a spoon and just scrape this, make it nicer and neater. You don't have to. It looks just fine like that. We'll pull this little membrane out. There we go. All right. So then the next thing, and what we have this paper towel for, is because with gloves on you can't get a real good grip of this membrane. What you want to do is go ahead and remove this membrane, and what I always do is I just start at one corner. Now you don't want to pull this piece where it exposes just solid bone. It's almost like 2 membranes. So if you can see right there, you can see that there's 2 we just want that first layer. So you're going to use your paper towel, get your finger in there, and you can kind of see how it pries right open, right off. You might have to come back and get some pieces that, if there was a little cut on that membrane, it might tear. But that's it. It's nice and clean. Now, like I said, some people will take a spoon and they'll scrape this additional fat off. There's nothing wrong with leaving that. There's good flavor there. You know, I always say it just adds to the flavor of the rib. But that's pretty much it. Now, I'll show you real quick how we season it. And these are some good ribs. You can see all the marbling within the meat. And that's what you want. You don't want tons of fat packed on top of this rib. You'd rather see the fat internally. It makes for a better flavor. So what we're going to do real quick, we're going to season these so y'all see how we season them. You don't have to season a rib nearly as heavy as how you season a brisket. Brisket, it's a thick piece of meat. You can season that pretty heavy. You're not going to over season a brisket. You got to put a lot of seasoning to over season a brisket. Ribs, it's a lot thinner. We never season these until the night before they go on. Briskets, I'll trim and season all my briskets on at the beginning of the week, and then that way I can just put them on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But with ribs, I season them the night before, right before we close the restaurant. We trim them up, season them, and then first thing in the morning they go on the pit because I don't want them to get too salty. All right, so we're going to go ahead and season these ribs. Usually I start on the back side first, you know, and then I'll flip it over. And the reason for it is there's a little curve to these bones here, and once I season this, I'll pat the seasoning down, flip it over, and season the top. And when I pull it off, I don't have a ton of seasoning stuck to the bottom of this thing. Now, if I did it the other way, if I season this first, this side, then flip it over, it's flat. It's sitting right on this plastic. And then when I go to take it off, I basically leave a whole bunch of seasoning on there. So that's why I always start on the back side and then I flip it over. So, and like I said, we don't go real heavy on our ribs. We let the meat do the talking for it. And that's about it. That's about as heavy as you want to go on your ribs. And also, something I will mention is if you see the way I'm holding the bottle from the very base, if you hold it from here, it's easy to sprinkle. It takes very little movement of your hand to make the very front of the bottle move a lot. Whereas if you grab it here, it's a little harder. You don't have as much control. It's a lot steadier just grabbing it from the very bottom of the bottle. And that's it. We just pat it down, and those ribs are seasoned and ready to go on first thing in the morning. All right, guys, well, that's it for today. We'll be doing more videos, so look for us, like and subscribe to our channel. And remember, smoked meat, not meth. Y'all take care. There you go. And this one, it looks as though they have already removed the back membrane, so we don't have to on this particular slab. And that's it. It's clean enough there. But now what we want to do is set this aside. And these trimmings that we cut off, you can either season these and throw them on the pit. Most people at home, you know, cooking, that's what they're going to do. But us here at the restaurant, we save these and put them in our freezer. And once we have, whenever we make sausage, this will go towards our sausage. So, you know, it's not a whole lot of weight, but you can see there's a little cartilage in here. You can't just throw that in your sausage. You have to actually go ahead and trim that off of that cartilage. And you can feel when you run into one. So that right there is just pure pork that you can add right into your sausage. And the reason I say that is we're going to be making sausage here pretty soon and do a video, and you will see, you know, every little bit will save you some money. Like, for instance, I'm going to be making 125 pounds of sausage here the next couple days, and my sausage is half beef, half pork. Well, by saving these little pieces, these little scraps of pork, I only had to buy 36 pounds of pork for that 125 pounds of sausage. So it saves me a lot of money by keeping these little scraps instead of having to buy what would normally take about almost 70 pounds or 65 pounds of pork butts. I only had to buy 36 pounds. So it does save you money by keeping this stuff. But if you're at home and you're just do maybe one slab of ribs every couple weeks, you know, that there's really no point. Season them up, throw them on the barbecue pit to go right along with your ribs, and they're great. These little brisket bones right here are awesome. I mean, they have a ton of meat. There you go. That's just a nice little piece of pork. More. And that's it. And this you can throw away, or you could even boil it for your dogs. However, you know, usually we just throw that away, and you got that much pork right there that we get to add to our sausage pile. And since we do ribs every single day, that adds up very quickly. But back to this, everything looks good. You can trim this little excess one off if you want.